Very good. So welcome, everyone. We are delighted to have Marilee Kinsella with us here. I think most of you know her, but for those who don't, I'll give a brief introduction. So Marilee is a chef and caterer, now located in Chicago, but previously she served as director of Spokane Area Jewish Family Services in 2014. And some of you might remember very fondly, she more recently than that catered Jewish Family Services luncheons to great acclaim. So to great acclaim, to widespread praise. So tonight she is Zooming to us from the Windy City, and she'll show us how to make a few dishes from or inspired by the Levantine cuisine, culinary tradition featured in Breaking Bread. And that film becomes available to view tonight, preceded by the short space Torah at 7 p.m., right after our demo and schmooze. So let's go ahead and have Marilee start. Marilee, you are welcome to take it away. And at the end, we'll have time for questions and or schmoozing.
Okay. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And hi to everybody who's out there. You have no idea how much I miss you all. So much, so much. But let's get started here with food, because that's what you came here for. So in the tradition of the movie that you're going to be seeing tonight, we're going to work with some Levantine food items here. And the first thing we're going to get started with is probably the most important part of any Levantine dish, and that's Zatar. And I'm sure you've all heard of Zatar. If you've eaten my food, you've eaten Zatar because I cook with it a lot. And now I'm going to show you how to mix up your own blend of Zatar. Now, Zatar isn't an absolute thing. There aren't specific ingredients that you'll always find in every batch of Zatar. It varies from region to region. There's Lebanese Zatar and Israeli Zatar, and there's all kinds of different varieties of Zatar. So I'm going to show you the one that I like to mix up. And I add a little bit of pepper in at the end. I'll show you that too. And then if anybody is interested in my recipes, I just told Neil that after tonight's event, I will sit down and write everything up and email it to him, and then they'll be available to you if you want to try this yourself at home. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to mix up Zatar. Now, Zatar is a spice blend. It's not one thing, it's a blend of many different spices. And in my blend, I'll show you what I'm going to use. We have cumin seed, about a tablespoon. And what we're going to do is put all of the spices into my mortar and pestle. And then we're going to crush them up a bit. So in goes the cumin. And then we have thyme, another tablespoon. To that is probably one of the most important ingredients in Zatar. It's called sumac. And it has a kind of a lemony aroma, sort of an acidic, citrusy taste. And it adds a very important flavor to Zatar. So you cannot make Zatar without sumac. So we'll put a tablespoon of that. Next we have toasted sesame seeds. You can buy these in any grocery store in the Asian food section. So we'll add a tablespoon of that. Now next we have what I'm going to put in is oregano. And the reason I put in a little bit of oregano is when you get Zatar in the Middle East, one of the ingredients is wild thyme, which is very different from the kind of thyme that you buy in the grocery store with the little tiny leaves. And it definitely has a different flavor and adds a different dimension to your Zatar, but you can't get wild thyme here. I suppose you might be able to order it on the internet, but it's not something that's readily available. And so one suggestion is to add a little bit of oregano into the mix to add a different, more wild flavor. So we're going to add 2 teaspoons oregano. And then my secret is Aleppo pepper. This little guy here. I like to add just a little bit, about 1/4 teaspoon into the mix. Aleppo doesn't have a lot of heat. It's a medium hot pepper, but it adds a nice little zing that I like. And what we're gonna do, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see? Yeah, I think you can. Okay, I've got this in my mortar and pestle. And I'm gonna start to crush the herbs. And crushing them helps to bring out the flavors. So we'll do this for a minute or two. If you have a spice grinder, you can also use a spice grinder to mix up your herbs. I like to use a mortar and pestle just because I like to do things the hard way. Okay. So here we have it. I wish you could smell it. All of the herbs getting crushed together. And really, that's about it. A pinch of salt, which would be about 1/4 teaspoon. And then a grinding of fresh black pepper. Give that another couple of crushes with our pestle. And there we have it. Pour this into a dish. We have about 1/2 cup here. And what you're getting is a nice blend of all of these very fragrant herbs. It's important to use fresh herbs. Don't use dried up stuff that's been sitting in your kitchen for, months on end. Buy some fresh herbs and make it. Now, one thing I will say, if you can't find sumac, which shouldn't be a problem, but in Spokane, it sometimes can be difficult to find certain herbs and spices. You can certainly order it over the internet. But one thing that I did want to tell you is now you can buy Zatar if you want to just buy it, but you should use a lot of it. Get a big bottle. Spiceology spells get Zatar, and you can get it at the Kitchen Engine where I used to work. But in any case, we have ours all mixed up here. And I am going to use this to now make hummus. Let me go turn on the oven. And I'm heating up our bread. Okay, so we'll put the Zatar off to the side. And let's prepare our hummus. Now, when I was doing some research on Levantine cuisine, I read a lot about garbanzo beans. And that's what we have right here. This was 2 cans of garbanzo beans. And what you need to do, if you want your hummus to be smooth and silky and creamy, you need to remove the skins from the beans. And this is something I never knew. Learned it just this week. These are the skins from some garbanzo beans. They're really very substantial in terms of how much weight there is to the bean. But we really want to get these off because they're very papery. I don't know if you can see too well. They're very papery and they're kind of thick. And what that does, if you don't take the skins off of your garbanzo beans, you will get a grainier consistency to your hummus. And we all like nice, smooth, silky hummus. So what I did was to take the skins off of the beans. Now, to do that, there's a couple of ways to do that. I did it using cold water just running out of the faucet. And I would rub the beans between my fingers very lightly and gently. And you'll notice when you do this that the skin just starts to slip right off. So it took a few minutes and I got all of the skins off. And what we're going to do now is get ready to make our hummus. So first we'll start with some lemon juice, about 1/4 cup. fresh squeezed, a pinch or two of salt, and then we're going to take a nice big fat clove of garlic and squeeze that in there. And just because I really like garlic, we're going to do another one. It's up to you how many cloves you put in. 1 or 2 should be good enough. Okay. Now what we want to do, if we had 10 minutes just to stand around and watch this, would be to let the garlic mellow a little bit in the lemon juice with the salt. But for purposes of our video here, we're just going to go ahead and start processing it. Now you need a food processor to do this. What we're going to do is process the garlic with the lemon juice for just a minute or 2. Okay. Then we're going to add our tahini and a little bit of ice water. So pardon me while I just peek over here at my recipe. Okay. Here we have a 1/2 cup of tahini. Add that in. Put it all in there. My favorite tahini, actually, is from Trader Joe's. They carry a really good brand. That's where this one is from. So we have our tahini, and we put in our lemon. And now we're going to mix this up till it becomes creamy. Okay. Scrape down the sides. And then we will add our garbanzo beans, a little bit of ice water. Let's just give that a garbanzos. And about a tablespoon of olive oil. Okay, and let's give that a good whir. You'll have to scrape down the sides a couple of times. Add a little bit more water. The water helps make it creamy. You will have to continually open up the food processor and test your hummus in order to get it to the right consistency. Add a little bit more water. There it goes. Now let's scrape it down again. And we'll give it a taste. See if we need a little bit more olive oil. And we do. A lot of hummus making is just stopping and tasting and adjusting. That's what we're doing. We want it to get nice and creamy. Okay. And here we have it, the beautiful creamy hummus. And let's see, can you see? All right. Now, we all know what to do with hummus. You know, you can dip vegetables in it, spread it onto bread, eat it as a sandwich. So many ways you can eat it. What I'm going to do tonight is make a little bit of a pizza with the hummus as the base on the bread. I have some bread in the oven. I'm sorry, my kitchen is so small, I have to walk away and then you can't see me. But here I am, and we're going to use naan. It's a nice flatbread, makes a good pizza. You can also make your own pizza dough if you'd like, and just use the hummus on your own pizza dough. But for the sake of time, we're using pre-made bread. Take some of our nice creamy hummus and spread it onto that pita bread. Put some more. Okay. So what you want is something that looks like that. Once you have your creamy hummus spread on the bread, get some arugula. This is baby arugula. And mix it with some tomatoes. I already chopped these up. These are heirloom cherry tomatoes. So there's a couple of different colored tomatoes in there. It makes it look pretty. I'm going to combine those with the arugula. With your hands, just mix it up. Put some of the tomato juices on the arugula. Mix it all together. And we're going to add some za'atar. So here's this is the za'atar that we just made. And we're going to sprinkle it liberally. Season your food. People tend to not season enough. With za'atar, use a lot. It tastes great. You can't use too much. So we're going to sprinkle some right onto our pita bread on top of the hummus. We're going to layer our flavors. So here's the bread and the hummus and the za'atar on top of the hummus. And then we'll take a little bit of the za'atar and mix it in with the arugula and the tomatoes. Let's get a little bit more. And once I write these recipes down, I'll give you measurements. Right now, I'm not really using measurements. Not that important. Okay, so we've got our arugula and our tomatoes all mixed up. And what we want to do is now lay that out on top of the hummus. Okay. And that's layer one. Then sorry, as I disappear to get a towel. Then the next thing we're going to add are some toasted pine nuts. Now these I toasted a little while ago in the oven at 350 degrees for about 4 minutes. Now, when you're toasting pine nuts, you have to be very careful because they can go from raw to over toasted and burnt in a matter of seconds. So make sure you watch carefully, and you should get nice brown nuts like that. We're going to take some of the toasted nuts and sprinkle them on top of our little pizza here. The next thing we're going to add, I sliced up some Kalamata olives, available anywhere. Add a few olives on top of that. And finally, we have some feta cheese. This stuff is nice and creamy. I've crumbled it up. And we're going to crumble a little bit on top of our pizza. I guess it's not really a pizza because we're not going to cook it. The bread is nice and warm. Okay, so there's our cheese. And the last thing I'm going to do, here's our beautiful pizza right here. I'm going to sprinkle some of the za'atar that we just made on top. So there's zatar in the hummus. There's zatar in with the arugula and the tomato mixture. And then I'm going to take about a teaspoon, sprinkle it on top. Along with a pinch of salt for flavor. And there we have it. It's a beautiful pizza. Now, what you can do if you're sharing, use a pizza cutter. It's much easier than trying to cut this with a knife. Let me see if I can turn my camera and you can watch as I cut. I think you can see that. So with a pizza cutter, it's so easy just to roll along and make your cuts. And what we have is either a great appetizer or a delicious meal for dinner. And those are some ways that you can use Zatar. Now, a couple other ways, just so I can talk a little bit more. I like to take Zatar and use it as a rub for chicken. So if I'm cooking breasts or if I'm cooking thighs, I like to take the Zatar and rub it all over the skin. And that means using a lot. So don't be shy when you're cooking with Zatar. Use a lot of it. It tastes delicious. And the more you use, the better it tastes. So layer your flavors and try making this at home. It's delicious. And let me know how it goes. That went a lot quicker than I thought it would. Does anybody have questions?
If anyone would like, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. Thank you so much, Marilee. I have to say, it looks amazing. And I wish we could all have a piece, but hopefully soon.
I wish you could too.
Hopefully soon we'll be making it in our own kitchens.